And then we will continue on to the Habitat Conservation Plan, implementing ordinance and fee resolution. So, Ms. Marta, you can go in second.
You're on the hot seat, Matt.
Okay.
Hold on, Matt.
Well, good afternoon. This is a public hearing on Tuesday, October 4th, 2022. It is 3:31 p.m. The topic of this public hearing is to amend the speed limit schedule for various county roads. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept and consider public comment on the proposed ordinance amending the speed limits on all portions of 93rd Avenue Southeast, 199th Avenue Southeast, Case Road Southwest, Fish Trap Loop Northeast, Houston Drive Northeast, Reclau Road Southeast, Tyrell Road Southeast, and Woodard Bay Road Northeast. This is a hybrid public hearing. Those wishing to testify have joined in person by Zoom, emailed in comments, or mailed in comments. If you wish to testify, please visit the Thurston County homepage online and select announcements of public hearings on the left-hand side. The information to join this public hearing remotely has been posted there. If you do not wish to testify but would like to listen and follow along, please watch the live stream through the Thurston County YouTube channel to help us manage attendance. Matt Unselman, with support from Becky Kahn, will provide information on this topic. Assuming those on Zoom wish to testify, the county manager will help me read your name aloud. I will read the names on the sign-up sheet, and so those, there's no one in room 152. You will have 3 minutes to testify. Time may not be given to another person. When you're called on, please state your name and address for the record. The public hearing is now open. Matt and Becky will now present background information of the proposed amendment, written comments submitted, and any additional information requested by the board. Matt?
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Matt Unsman, and I'm joined by Becky Kahn, and we are representatives from the Public Works Traffic Engineering Operations Department. I'm going to go quickly through this presentation today because you guys have seen, the Board of County Commissioners have seen this material multiple times already. And I would encourage anybody from the public that's watching to go onto the Thurston County YouTube site and look at the presentation or the board briefing we did last month. So as Commissioner Mejia mentioned, today's hearing is part of the annual speed limit revision process. Each year, we receive many requests to evaluate speed limits from the public, the Sheriff's Office, the Commissioner's Office, and often staff initiates their own review. Today's hearing is for your consideration of 8 speed limits that staff had determined are warranted for speed limit revisions. This next slide is just a quick reminder that we have sideboards on how we evaluate speed limits. We have federal, state, and local requirements that must be followed in evaluating speed limits. Our local county code states that all roads are 50 miles an hour unless they're posted otherwise. There are several key criteria that staff considers when evaluating speed limits, including the 85th percentile, the 10-mile-per-hour base speed, and engineering judgment. And if you'd like me to define what those are later, I'm more than willing to, but you guys are borderline traffic engineers by now because I've presented this material three or four times. So we're going to jump to the next slide. And we're going to skip this slide too. So the first roadway that we're going to consider today is 93rd Avenue. This portion of 93rd Avenue extends from Tilley Road on the west end to Old Highway 99 at the east end. Currently, the speed limit is 50 miles an hour. We receive a lot of phone calls. I know the Commissioner's Office also receives a lot of phone calls regarding this portion of Old Highway 99 as well. This roadway is narrow, has lots of driveways. Portions of it have limited sight distance, and despite having minimal to no shoulders, it's routinely used by bicyclists and pedestrians. And unfortunately, last year we did have a truck versus bicycle fatality collision. 93rd Avenue is used by more than 6,000 vehicles per day. Based upon a recent speed study, the average speed is 50 miles an hour and the 10-mile-per-hour pace speed is 41 to 51 miles per hour. So based upon the safety considerations that I've mentioned, we're recommending establishing the speed limit at 40 miles per hour on this portion of 93rd. Now, this also makes sense because the state's portion of 93rd between I-5 and Tilley Road is already 40 miles an hour. So all this would do is simply make a consistent speed limit going all the way from I-5 all the way down to Old Highway 99 at 40 miles per hour. And this will hopefully avoid driver confusion. Next slide. Next, we are going to 199th Avenue. And these next two speed limit revisions are related. 199th comes off of Tyrell, which comes off of Skookumchuck Road, which is located just outside of Tenino. 199th is very narrow. It has a traffic volume of 200 vehicles per day. And we're recommending reducing the speed limit from an unposted 50 miles an hour to 30 miles per hour, which is exactly what the traffic study that we conducted said the average travel speed was. As I mentioned, the next one's related to this one, and that's actually Tyrell Road itself. And this is the road that comes straight off of Skookumchuck Road. It has a traffic volume of 330 vehicles per day, is extremely narrow, and we're recommending reducing the speed limit to 30 miles per hour so that it's consistent with 199th Avenue, which we discussed previously. So next, we're going to Case Road, and this is only for a very small portion of Case Road. So Case Road extends all the way from the Grand Mound area to the South Tumwater area. This is only for a small portion of Case Road between Beaver Creek, where we recently did our Fish Passage project, to Maytown Road near exit 95. This was brought to our attention through citizen complaints through both the Public Works and the Commissioner's Office. Case Road is currently posted at 50 miles per hour and is used by more than 2,700 vehicles per day. The average speed is 53 miles per hour, and the 10 mile per hour pace speed is 42 miles per hour. Staff is proposing a 40 mile per hour speed limit based upon some safety concerns. Freightliner has moved into the previously owned site of Ritchie Brothers, and Freightliner works on semi-trucks, and they have multiple entrances in and out of the site. So there's continuously semi-traffic going in and out of this site. Now you combine that with vehicles traveling 50 miles an hour coming from the south around that vehicle or around that curve, it creates some safety concerns. And we've also, unfortunately, there's an uncontrolled train crossing in this segment, and in the past couple of years, we've had at least 2 documented train versus vehicle collisions because of the limited sight distance of the railroad tracks. So next, we're going to the northeast, and I apologize if I'm going too fast, slow me down. Fish Trap Loop is currently posted at 35 miles per hour, but drivers are currently only driving at 30 miles per hour based upon a recent speed study. The 10 mile per hour pace speed is 21 to 31 miles per hour. The average traffic volume is around 300 vehicles per day. Staff is recommending a 25 mile per hour speed limit based upon the narrow roadway geometry, the limited sight distance, the number of pedestrians, the number of driveways, and other safety considerations. The next site we're going to in the northeast is Woodard Bay Road. Woodard Bay Road is currently an unposted 50 miles per hour roadway. This portion extends from Boston Harbor Road to Libby Road. The average traffic volume is nearly 1,600 vehicles per day. The 85th percentile speed, or the average speed, is 48 miles per hour, and the 10 mile per hour pace speed is 37 to 47 miles per hour. Staff is recommending a 40 mile per hour speed limit based upon collision history, the number of driveways, number of pedestrians and bicyclists, and also the fact that there's very minimal to no shoulders along this portion of Woodard Bay Road. So the second to last site that we're going to is Houston Drive Northwest, and this comes off of the Evergreen Parkway. This one was initiated by staff. It's currently an unposted 50 mile per hour roadway, which isn't appropriate because it's actually a gravel roadway that only has 130 vehicles per day using it. The average speed is 27 miles per hour, and the 10 mile per hour pace speed range was 11 to 21 miles per hour. Staff is recommending a 25 miles per hour speed limit. Currently, we have a fish passage project going on Houston Drive, and we actually use the 25 mile per hour design speed limit to design some of the traffic barrier on that road. And the final site is Reclau Road, and this was citizen initiated. The proposal is for the entire length of Reclau Road from Yelm Highway to the dead end. It's currently posted at 35, but most drivers are traveling at less than 30 miles per hour, which indicates that it's probably not posted correctly. The 10-mile-per-hour pace speed is 19 to 29 miles per hour. Staff is recommending a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit based upon the roadway geometry. And frankly, most roadways similar to this in the county are already 25 miles per hour, because if they come in as a subdivision road, i.e. similar to what Reclau Road is, it's an automatic 25 miles per hour. So next steps. So the next steps are for the Board of County Commissioners to make decisions on what the speed limit, on which speed limits to proceed forward with. The Board of County Commissioners can choose to go forward with all of the proposed speed limits, some of them, or none of them. If the Board of County Commissioners elect to go forward with the revisions, then they will be posted in the field in the next couple of weeks. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions unless you'd like me to summarize written comment.
Questions? Commissioner Edwards.
I do not have any questions at this point.
Commissioner Menzer.
Can you summarize written comment?
Yes, sir. Okay, so we received 36 written comments, and we've actually only have one negative comment. On 93rd Avenue, 5 out of 5 were positive. On 199, 2 out of 2 were positive. Tyrell, 1 out of 1 was positive. Case Road, we have some public that will be testifying. Fish Trap Loop, 8 were positive, 1 was neutral. Woodard Bay Road, 7 were positive, 1 was neutral. On Houston Drive, that's the one that was staff initiated. We only received 1 comment back, and that was positive. And then Reclau, we had 1 neutral and 8 positive.
Questions?
No questions. I think you did a good job putting this together for us, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, so we'll proceed with public testimony. We will go with those in person first, and then we will move on to Zoom. For those who have signed up, Richard Glacker? Okay.
Pretty close.
Okay.
Close.
How do you say it?
Glathar, that's very close, so thank you. Yeah, my name is Richard Glathar. I live at 8825 Libby Road Northeast, so I'm on the Libby Road side of the Fish Trap Loop, and I appreciate the county addressing the speeds in that area. I live on the other side of the loop that hasn't been reduced or isn't being proposed to be reduced. I'd like that side to be addressed as well. As you said earlier, there's no, it's a matter of consistency. If we have one side of the loops that's 25 and one side that's still 35, and there's some inconsistency there, as well as the whole loop is a pedestrian area. It's a destination. Everyone who drives out that way either lives there or they're going to visit somebody. Okay, it comes off 50 miles an hour from the straightaway of Libby, and a lot of cars come around that curve and they're still going at a fairly high rate of speed. So for a matter of just the narrowness of the road, and for the amount of pedestrians, because a lot of people who live out there use it as a pedestrian area, and the road was repaved recently. Thank you for doing that. And I've seen that's maybe even increased the people's speed a little bit more because the road is so nice at this point. So I'd like to see it either maximum of 30. I understand the Libby side has a lot more straightaways, so maybe couldn't bring it down to 25. But a similar area is Johnson Point Loop, and the speed limit there is 30 miles an hour and has been for a long time. So appreciate you letting me address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Miron. No? Okay. Next is Bill Jacobs.
Hi, my name is Bill Jacobs. I live on Fish Trap Loop, and just a couple things. One is I walk the loop most every day. When people come toward me, they always slow down, they move over to the other side. If there's cars coming the other way, they stop, they let the cars through. In no way do I feel that the speed limit, whether it's 25 or 35, I don't think it's going to affect my safety there at all. I'm in favor of keeping it the same speed as it is now. And they did a great job resurfacing it recently. And yes, I'm sure it did increase the speeds that people are traveling a little bit. But I think you have to look at enforcement. I think, we're way out at the end of land. And I think that if you're going to drop that speed limit, I mean, I've driven it at 25, and it is just ungodly slow. And I think you're going to have to enforce that, and I think it's going to take a lot of police resources to monitor that. And I just don't think it's a good way for the police budget to be spent monitoring what I think is a really extremely low speed. I think they got better uses for their police budget. So that's it.
Thank you. Next, I have, you marked no, but I just want to make sure. Chris Kramer. Okay. Next, I have Lauren Knight.
Hi, my name is Lauren Knight. I live at 5205 Reclau Road, Southeast. We have had property on Reclau Road since the early 1960s, and for the past 10 years, we have resided on Reclau Road. I have noticed an increased volume of traffic on Reclau Road since the renovation of the two boat launches, the two public boat launches. The vehicles are mostly trucks hauling boats and other watercrafts. Traveling at 35 miles an hour when towing a boat makes it more difficult for a driver to stop or move for pedestrians. During the summer months, there has been multiple times when both boat launch parking lots are full, which causes the overflow to park on the street. These vehicles, including their trailers, do not fit on the side of the road. Therefore, they are partially parked on the street. When this happens, you cannot walk around them without walking in the middle of the road. It is even difficult to have two cars pass in the same area. There is a crosswalk with only a sign on each side of the street with no lights indicating someone wants to cross. This is located down a hill traveling north near both boat launches with a speed of 35 miles an hour. Reclau Road has multiple turns and hills, which makes it difficult to see someone walking on the road. The growth of vegetation, trees, and shrubs also hinders the driver's sight to see people walking on the road. There are no streetlights on Reclau Road to help see pedestrians during the early morning and evening hours when people are out walking. There is only one speed limit sign of 35 miles an hour. That is when you first turn onto Reclau Road heading north from Yelm Highway. There are no speed limit signs when driving the south to north direction on Reclau Road. The road off Reclau, which is Kewah and Lake St. Clair Drive, have the speed limit already at 25 miles an hour. There is a person residing in the area who is in a wheelchair that I often see taking his dog for a walk on Reclau Road. Let me remind you, there are no sidewalks. With no sidewalks on Reclau Road, one often has to make sure they move away from the pavement, which you can often find yourself in the roadside vegetation. I highly recommend lowering the speed limit to 25 miles an hour like the other roads in the area. Thank you for your time. Sorry for being nervous, but.
Good job.
Thank you. Next, I have Jeff Merriman.
So my name is Jeff Merriman. I'm in support of lowering the speed limit there on Case Road by Freightliner. We do have industries there. My question, though, is, has it been taken into consideration, because I notice there's some land use permits going on for more industrial in that area. Is that 40 mile an hour limit, like, where's it going to start? Because I'm hoping this will be done once and we don't have to revisit it when more industry goes into that area. So I'd like a longer 40 mile an hour area, or even a 35 area, because trucks don't move very quick. They are cumbersome, and I've personally experienced coming around that corner to a truck trying to pull out of there on several occasions. So I would strongly suggest that we go lower than 40. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else in the boardroom like to provide? Mr. Terry Ballard?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Terry Ballard. I live in Tangawell. I would stress that you don't have a passing lane on these two-lane roads. That would really become a safety problem. Out of the norm, I do have a safety concern. There's a lot of apartments being built in Tangawell off of School Road. Due to our covenant, there's parking, there shouldn't be parking on both sides, but there is. There's only, when people park on both sides, there's only one car can pass on that whole road. This road runs all the way up to Lydia Hawk School. And with the number of apartments going in, the kids are going to be in abundance. I suggest we do crosswalks. I suggest we put no parking signs on one side, and I suggest that we extend the crosswalk that's on the south side of the road be extended all the way down to Husky Road. It's going to be a major problem, and since this forum's about traffic, I would very much stress that somebody look into the matter, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? For those members on Zoom who came for the speed limit public hearing, if you will please raise your hand.
Three, four.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Please call their names.
Yeah, thank you. So far, I have 4 individuals who have raised their hand via Zoom. First, I have Ms. Karen Mesmer. Please go ahead, ma'am. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Karen Mesmer. I live in Olympia. I am a walker and a cyclist. I sent more detailed comments in writing before the hearing. A thank you to the commissioners and the public works staff for bringing the speed limit ordinance forward. Please adopt these speed reductions and ask your sheriff's office to enforce these speed limits. High speeds feel unsafe because they are unsafe, especially for people who are walking and cycling. A speeding motor vehicle can be deadly. In the past 5 years, the Washington Traffic Safety Commission reports that in Thurston County, 23 people who were walking or cycling died from crashes involving motor vehicles. Speeding motorists can also make it uncomfortable for people to walk or cycle. Walking and cycling are sometimes the only form of transportation a person has, and we want it to not only be safe, but to feel safe for everyone. When a person who is walking or cycling is struck by a motor vehicle traveling at 25 miles per hour, the chance of them dying is about 12%. At 35 miles per hour, more than 25% of those who are struck will die. Once the speed is as high as 50 miles an hour, 75% of those who were struck by a motor vehicle will die. Reducing speeds will help safety on our roadways, and honestly, what's a minute here or there? I think people can manage their time to be able to drive at a modest speed. I want to note that the 85th percentile or typical speed does not really account for safety needs of people who are walking and cycling. And I want to thank you for supporting more modest speeds for our local roadways. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I have Mr. Jim Lazar. Go ahead, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm participating to share in the support for this and to speak to one particular proposed speed area, and that is, and I'm showing it, is Woodard Bay Road. The proposed reduction is from Boston Harbor to Libby. I am concerned about the continuation of Woodard Bay. That is from Libby Road past the Woodard Bay Conservation Area and then past the trailhead for the Chehalis Western Trail. These are two of our community's most treasured recreational facilities. There is substantial pedestrian and bicycle traffic between the trailhead, where there's plenty of parking, and the conservation area where there is not. We often ride out the trail and then go down to the conservation area. Going down is not a problem, but coming back up, it's a steep hill and a curve. The sight distances are impaired. There are people walking between the two areas, people cycling between the two areas. I want to ask you to extend the speed limit reduction beyond Libby Road all the way to Henke Road, or if you must, add it to next year's list. I actually think that the area really just between the parking area at the conservation area and the trailhead should be even lower. Really, that section could be, a dense pedestrian and bicycle traffic and limited speed distance and steep hill. 25 miles an hour might be good for just that very short segment. But I support the other changes. I have bicycled most of the major roads that have been listed: Woodard Bay, Fish Trap Loop, Case Road, 93rd, and the lower speeds will improve safety in those areas. But my real pitch to you is to add this section of Woodard Bay from Libby to Henke to the list and bring that speed limit down as well as the other part of Woodard Bay. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for letting me share screen. So many public agencies don't. I think my presentation was more useful to you because of it.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Ms. Bianca Wolf. Ms. Bianca Wolf, you raise your hand. Move on. Next, I have Mr. Blaine Snow.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Blaine Snow. I live at 6218 Woodard Bay Road along the straight stretch. And I'm just very much in support of the speed limit reduction. I feel in many ways unsafe, both driving, particularly walking and bicycling along this road. It's our observation after living here for 20 years or more that the average speed, as you measured, may be 48 miles per hour, but I can tell you that every single day there are people who go by here at 60 plus and sometimes more than that. They kind of use it as a place to gun their engine, and we can hear them coming from way up the road, and they zoom past our house at incredible speeds. And I would say that some people go by as fast as 80. So it's, obviously they're not going to pay attention to any speed limit, but it's just, I think lowering it's going to help overall with the feeling that, that it's, very dangerous. So oftentimes also on the straightaway, there are cars who want to go faster than the one they're behind, and they'll do passing. So that also feels very dangerous, especially when you go out to your mailbox and somebody's passing another car in the other, in the oncoming lane. So anyway, I just would very much support the speed limit reduction, and I would also support what Mr. Lazar was saying, extending it all the way over to Henke. I think that's a great idea, because I also use all those areas as well, the Chehalis Western and the Woodard Preserve, and there's a lot of people out on the roads there that I think feel the same kind of danger that the rest of us do with these people driving way over the speed limit. So anyway, those are my observations. Thank you for allowing me to present my thoughts today. And thanks again for considering the speed limit reduction.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Ms. Barbara Gross.
Hi, my name is Barbara Gross, and I live at 6218 Woodard Bay Road also. And I've been here for over 30 years, and the population in this area has really increased drastically over those years. So we have more traffic driving really fast along the road. So I really support the idea of lowering the speed limit down to 40. The road's narrow, there's no shoulder, there's a lot of driveways. Pets have been killed, wildlife's been killed. Fortunately, I don't know of any people who have been killed, but I do walk and bike along here, and it is very scary. It would be a 30-second increase of time for somebody to drive the stretch of road that you're talking about at 40 miles an hour instead of 50 miles an hour. So I don't see that there's any any downside for not lowering the speed limit. And safety, noise, and it's also quality of life. It's just so noisy living out here, and the difference of speed makes a big difference in terms of the sound. And the statistics that were given about how many people die depending on the speed were very sobering and scary and make me worried about walking on the road. So I would appreciate you following the great work Matt and his crew have done to recommend lowering the speed limits. And I also just need to say that I've been in touch with Bianca Wolf, who was having technological problems, and she'd still like to speak. So thank you.
Thank you. That would be a good opportunity to go back to Bianca Wolf. Go ahead, ma'am.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes, we can. 3 minutes, ma'am.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. I want to underscore everything that Blaine and Barbara have said and Mr. Lazar have said about the speed limits. I'm in absolute solid support of reducing the speed limits along Woodard Bay Road. As they've said, as Barbara just said, the only downside to reducing the speed along Woodard Bay Road is that for folks who are passing through, it's going to increase their travel time by about 30 seconds. That's a pretty minor impact compared to all the benefits that would be accrued for local residents. We use these roads on a daily basis, and we use the roads in many different ways. I think that in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, we thought of roadways as being there for vehicles, and it's not the 50s or 60s anymore. We use these roads, we walk on the roads, we bike on the roads. In an era where we're increasingly being aware of the impacts of climate change and the importance of not using vehicles to get from one place to another, we have even more folks thinking about, oh, can I walk that distance instead of driving it? Can I ride my bike? The community here in the Woodard Bay area, we're pretty outdoorsy folks, and we're pretty community-oriented folks. We like to get out and walk. And we like to see each other. It's not uncommon for someone to be out walking in the evening or during the day, bump into a neighbor who's out walking their dog, bump into another neighbor who's riding their bike, walking past someone sitting in their front yard. We keep an eye on each other, and that is part of making a community viable and safe and healthy. The only drawback the only thing that's preventing us from engaging in those kinds of activities is the amount of risk involved in walking on these roads. Woodard Bay, as others have mentioned, Woodard Bay has no shoulder. It's a narrow road, and the roadway ends with a steep drop off into a ditch. Any of us who walk on that road are doing so constantly aware
30
of the
seconds,
fact that when a
ma'am.
car comes,
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. All right. We have to be fully prepared to jump off the road into the ditch to avoid cars. That happens on a regular basis. Even walking across the street to get your mail can be dangerous. It's not long ago that a gentleman was killed on Boston Harbor Road when he was walking across the street to get his mail. So in summary, there is no downside to reducing the speed to 40 miles an hour other than increasing someone's commute time by 30 seconds.
Thank you.
There's a tremendous amount of upside to doing it.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, I have Colin Peoples.
Hey, thank you. My name's Colin Peoples. I live at 6246 Libby Road, and I am going to comment on the Woodard Bay Road as well. For one, let's just get into enforcement. And we all know that the sheriffs, no matter what the speed limit are, it's not there to enforce the speed limit. So no matter what you guys do, it's hard to enforce, and it won't be enforced. And those people that are driving 80 will drive 80 no matter if the speed limit's 40 or 50. The data that Matt said, I was here 2 years ago when you guys all voted no, not to increase the speed limit. And this was done with the same exact data that Matt just presented this year. They did tell me there was a new speed study that I don't see that they used this data for it, but the speed limit in the new study they said was an average of 52, not 48. On and on. There was 1,588 cars. Like I work for your favorite state agency, the Public Disclosure Commission, and I don't go to work. I go to work 1 or 2 days a week, and I think my neighbor works for Thurston County. She goes to work 50%. We're at kind of a maximum. I think that's the future. I don't think we're getting a lot of more traffic. Talk about that straightaway of Woodard Bay. If you look at the map, there's 66th Avenue, which is a perfect little side road that is gorgeous to walk on. I have a 5-year-old child. We walk on Woodard Bay and 66 daily. We walk down Libby Road going towards Town 26. That the speed limit's 35, and if you did an average of that, they'd be going 50. There's plenty of room to get away, to get off. What else? Consistency. Matt Unzelman talked about consistency. Well, that was on another traffic revision. If we were going to be consistent, that speed limit, which is unmarked, which is I also think where the confusion comes from, because it's an unmarked county road and lots of people don't know that an unmarked county road is 50. So you're on that road for a mile and a half, 2 miles, it turns, it goes to Libby Road, which is 50 anyways, and it's going to continue to be 50. So on Matt's comment on the earliest case road to make it consistent, that's going to make it inconsistent to do 40 for a mile and a half and then turn back to 50, which will be unmarked too, right? So, there's just multiple things. A reminder, the two of you that were in office last time voted no with this exact same data. I believe this came from one citizen complaint. Also, Matt mentioned wrecks. This is 2 years after the previous time, and there was
You have 30 seconds, sir. 30 seconds.
There was one wreck in a decade, and I believe that would be one wreck in 12 years now, because I guarantee there hasn't been another one. Again, this isn't a great thoroughfare. We're all on a peninsula. We're constrained by water. And also, I want to say about the other talk about that whole part of Woodard Bay going up to the Conservatory of Henke, that's already 35. That's not 50. It's already 35. So I don't know what they're really talking about. But thank you so much. I appreciate all of you guys, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Next, I have Lee Wilder.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, sir. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Lee Wilder. I represent Freightliner Northwest in this deal on Case Road Southwest, and I'm the instigator that Matt's talking about. Our concern was just simple physics, that a car coming around that corner from Beaver Creek, it's a blind corner, traveling at 50 miles an hour, and if I'm pulling out in an empty truck, this is an empty semi-truck, he is 35 to 50 feet past me before he stops. If I am pulling our test trailer, I weigh 80,000 pounds. In the same amount of time that it would take him a 50 mile an hour car to travel that same distance, the cab in front of the truck has made it onto the road. That's how much slower I can accelerate. And it's not the fact that I don't want to accelerate any faster. It's the fact that with the computer controls on the trucks that limit power output to protect the drivetrain, I don't have a choice. I can't go any faster. And Matt and Becky and I have talked about this a few times about this, the simple physics of what's going on. And personally, I'm happy to see that they are recommending with the data they have the 40 miles an hour because that's kind of a common sense speed. I would love to see it at 35 because the railroad tracks are already 30. And I think that the having that 50-mile-an-hour sign, I mean, they added slow-moving truck signs north and south of us on Case Road. And that's a big help, but one of them is almost blocked by the 50-mile-an-hour sign. So hopefully when you turn onto Case Road Southwest and they see a 40-mile-an-hour sign, or when they round the corner coming down into our area around Beaver Creek, they see the same thing, that slow trucks are entering and maybe the cautionary sign that the speed limit's going to be reduced. I think that will make a big difference. I mean, it's not perfect, but I think it's an improvement.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I believe that will conclude public testimony, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay. So, commissioners, anything you would like to discuss?
Not at this time, ma'am.
With hearing public comment, do commissioners need a follow-up briefing? How do you want to proceed?
I would prefer a follow-up and go on to the HCP meeting now.
Okay.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm ready for this public hearing to be closed. Is there a motion?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menser?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. This public hearing is now closed. We will have a follow-up briefing in the future in regards to the speed limit portions. I would like to thank everyone who provided written testimony as well as those who came in person today. Okay. This hearing is now closed, right?
Yep.
Once you bang that hammer.
There we go.
The gobble.
I'll give those who wish to leave at this time. Okay, now moving on to the next public hearing. I know that there's a lot of public interest. Thank you all for being patient as we got through that first public hearing. So it's 4:13. We'll go ahead and get started. This public hearing is in regards to the Habitat Conservation Plan Implementing Ordinance, item A8 on the 2022 through 2023 Development Code Docket and associated fee resolution. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept public comment on the proposed amendments of Title 17, 24, and 26 of the Thurston County Code and the proposed mitigation fee schedule relating to the Thurston County Habitat Conservation Plan, or HCP. This is a hybrid public hearing. Those wishing to testify have joined in person by Zoom. They've emailed in comment or mailed in comment. If you wish to testify, please visit the Thurston County homepage online and select announcements of public hearings on the left-hand side. The information to join this public hearing remotely has been posted there. If you do not wish to testify but would like to listen and follow along, please watch the live stream through the Thurston County YouTube channel to help us manage attendance. Our staff, Chris Chapeau, will provide information on this topic. Assuming members of the public on Zoom wish to testify, the county manager will read your names out loud. You will have 3 minutes to testify. Time may not be given to another person. When you're called on, please state your name and address for the record, and the clerk of the board will help me review the timer. The public hearing is now open. Chris Chapeau will now present background information of the proposal, written comments submitted, and any additional information requested by the board.
Ma'am, could I ask the county manager?
Yes.
Do we have legal present to kind of guide us through? Because there will be some other follow-up meetings on this, I'm afraid.
It will be a follow-up briefing, I believe is already scheduled for October 13th.
I'm just wondering, is legal on the screen or anything to hear?
No, that I can see. No, sir.
Nobody's here? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Christina Chapeau. I'm the Community Planning Manager for Community Planning and Economic Development Department. And as stated, the purpose of the public hearing is to accept public testimony on the proposed amendments to Title 17, 24, 26 of the Thurston County Code. These are docketed as items A8, and the proposed mitigation fee schedule relating to the Thurston County Habitat Conservation Plan, or HCP. In 2013 and in 2014, U.S. Fish and Wildlife listed several species as threatened or endangered under the Endangered Species Act. After discussions with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and analyzing the extent of listed species habitat overlap with potential development activities and capital projects, Thurston County considered its options to maintain compliance with the ESA. As a result, Thurston County determined that a programmatic habitat conservation plan would provide the conservation and development guidelines to protect the natural resources while improving and streamlining the permit process for development that may impact the threatened or endangered species. By proactively addressing the long-term conservation needs, the HCP strengthens the local control over land use, provides greater flexibility in meeting other needs such as housing, transportation, and economic growth in the area. With input from independent science reviewers, stakeholders, and the public, a team of scientists and planners developed the HCP starting in 2013, and throughout the project held stakeholder meetings to take input from technical advisors, consultants, stakeholders, and interested public to identify the covered activities, covered species, and mitigation quantification tools of the HCP. Thurston County also worked closely with Thurston Regional Planning Council and other Thurston County departments. This work was to ensure that the final product would address the county's forecasted population growth, development, and land use needs within the requested term of the incidental take permit, which is 30 years. The county also received technical assistance and guidance from the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. In 2015, the county presented the first draft of the HCP to stakeholders. At this time, staff and consultants took input and adjusted the HCP before initiating the technical review by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Between 2015 and 2021, county staff and the consultants, with guidance from the Board of County Commissioners, worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife to address issues and ensure that the document met federal permit issuance requirements. The permit area for the HCP is the area for which Thurston County has permitting authority, meaning rural Thurston County and the urban growth areas of Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, Yelm, Rainier, Tenino, and Grand Mound. The HCP does cover most public and private developments that require authorization from Thurston County. The HCP does not cover mineral extraction or mining activities. These activities, should they impact an ESA species, will need to seek separate federal permits in addition to their local permit. I would also note that the HCP is voluntary. Any applicants can choose to work directly with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and bring that information to the county while seeking local approval for a project. The species covered by the HCP are Taylor checker spot butterfly, Oregon vesper sparrow, Oregon spotted frog, Yelm pocket gopher, Tenino pocket gopher, and the Olympia pocket gopher. On July 1st, U.S. Fish and Wildlife issued the incidental take permit and approved the Thurston County HCP. To implement the Habitat Conservation Plan, the county's development codes need amending to provide regulatory framework, including a fee schedule to ensure that the county is meeting the requirements of the HCP and ITP. Among other conditions, the ITP does require the county to fully fund and implement the HCP. The proposed code amendments include adopting the Thurston County Habitat Conservation Plan, providing the rules to apply for and obtain the certificate of inclusion under the HCP, and amend Title 24, the Critical Areas Ordinance, and Title 26, Code Enforcement, to add references to the new HCP chapter. Additionally, proposed is a resolution for fee to establish the fee schedule for mitigation fees required to be paid by some sponsors of new development. Throughout the development of the HCP and the ordinance, the county connected with the public and stakeholders. Over the past 10 years, we've had over 100 meetings with stakeholders and the public. These have included in-person at locations throughout the county and online. We created a dedicated website for the HCP and kept that updated. We have produced over 22 news releases and over 30 informational meetings for a total of 17,000 emails sent. And I can go on, and I do have additional outreach statistics if the board would like that. All of this said, CPED, with the assistance of the PIO, has done a significant outreach and encouraged public participation on this topic. The Planning Commission has reviewed this amendment, or these amendments, on January 19th, February 2nd, and February 16th, and March 2nd. They held work sessions. They held a public hearing on April 6th, and at a subsequent meeting on April 20th, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approving the code amendments to adopt and implement the HCP. Notification for this public hearing was published in the Olympian on the 18th of August. This provided a 45-day comment period instead of the standard 20. In addition, webmail was sent to the Community Planning Division email listserv on September 9th, 29th, and a reminder again yesterday, October 3rd. A press release was also issued on September 8th. Thurston County Community Planning HCP website was updated with all available documents before the hearing noticed. To date, we've received 17 public comments in writing. These have been summarized in a comment matrix and provided to the Board of County Commissioners. The staff is not asking the board to decide today on the proposed changes, only to close the public hearing. Briefing has been scheduled for October 13th for further conversation. The options for the board after the briefing on the 13th would be to approve with modifications, or not approve. Should the board approve, CPED can begin approving the permits to the service area applicants beginning in 2023. Should the board approve with modifications, depending on those modifications, CPED may likely be able to begin providing permits in 2023. Should the board not approve, CPED would not be able to provide land use approvals or building permits to applicants within the Habitat Conservation Program service areas. Applicants would need to create and receive their own HCPs with the federal government, which would add significant time and cost to their projects. And that does conclude my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards.
Yes. You've got some material that you've been covering for upcoming events and
Yep.
HCP, this brochure. I don't have a page number on these, or I'd ask you by page number, but maybe you'll recognize this particular one, where you can control your mitigation fees for the, big house and little house, and kind of that's it. What I'm wondering about, do you have an example similar to this that is, that could give a citizen a rough estimate of maybe what the cost would be of building a home on, say, 5 acres? And, okay, and you've got 2 examples here, but the process that you would go through to make that come to fruition and you could move into a house.
Sure.
What kind of example can you give us? And maybe you won't be able to do that off the top of your head, but I think we're going to have more study as this thing goes on. Yeah. So that citizens would have some idea of the cost this was going to be to them.
Sure. So there is, it's a lot of math for me to go through at the moment, but there is a form online, it's the Gopher form. It walks anybody step by step through how to determine their estimated mitigation fee. That will be updated here in the very near future to provide even more detail to how to find the information, how to input that information, and actually do the calculations for them so there's no math errors.
Chris, can you provide the website for that?
Sure. thurstonhcp.org.
Yeah. Well, what I was hoping for is before we end up voting on this, that we might have an example that we can refer to, especially if we're going to explain to a constituent, well, here's the way it works. you'll have something like that laid out? I mean, so I don't want to tell people, go to the computer and try and figure it out. If you've got something kind of cookie cutter, I don't know, doesn't have to be exact, so that you can show that if you do this one issue, if you go this route, you're going to get away with 1/4 of an acre of disturbance, and that's going to equal something. I can tell you what human nature usually is this might be accomplished, and then if they got any other ideas, you're probably not going to hear about it. That's the bottom line. Because you're forcing people to be in a situation that they probably can't afford to do a lot of this. So it's just, when might we be able to have that type of information?
Sure, I can bring that on to the briefing on the 13th.
Okay, good. I think that's it for me right now.
Thank you. Commissioner Menzer.
Just a couple. So what was the date on which the Planning Commission adopted or voted on this?
April 20th.
I thought that was April 6th was a public hearing, and then okay, April.
Subsequent.
Is the clock, so the incidental take permit from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, 30 years, is that clock ticking right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so so there is a time element in terms of getting this implemented if we're going to be moving forward. Okay, and at the beginning you talked about covered activities, covered species. Am I remembering correctly that the plan that was ultimately accepted compared to the plan that wasn't accepted in 2018, I believe your team reduced the scope and reduced certain activity, parameters, species, I think we honed down. Is that correct?
We did not change any of the covered activities. What we did is, yes, hone the covered species. So there were initially 12 covered species in the first 3 drafts of the HCP, and in the final drafts, there is 6.
I know there, though, in addition to that, there was a question of 80% build out of get estimated, and that was reduced because.
Correct. Some of the estimations for our population are build out for.
It wasn't realistic where we were.
It was a little high.
Okay. And the point of making those changes was to try to reduce that correspondingly reduce the number of acres we have to deal with, which therefore reduces the ultimate cost.
Correct.
Okay. And that's what finally passed the finish line with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, giving us this permit that now we have 30 years to work with if we can.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions today.
Okay.
Go ahead, sir.
I was just trying to, rather than take up all the time, I want to be polite about this. So we've got quite a bit of input, I guess, from the Chamber of Commerce, from the master builders, from the Economic Development Council. And they've got some pretty serious concerns, I guess is the best way I can put it. And there was one issue that was brought up having to do with RCW 8202020, in which that citizen alleges that there is no authority to charge a person over here to deal with a problem over here. I mean, that's putting it in very simple layman terms. So these issues that the different groups or citizens have brought forward, will you be able to address those particular issues of concern that they've brought to get up in, maybe not, I suppose individually, maybe there's 5 or 6, it sounds like. The assessor had a concern about things on file in his office. Will you be able to address all of those concerns at our next upcoming meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can the public comment?
Just 1 second. No, sir.
We can't ask her qualifications.
No, sir. Please.
We'll get to all that, sir. We'll get to it. We will.
Chris, my questions are in regards to, if we were not to adopt this And we would not be in compliance with the incidental take permit that we just got. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So what would happen at that time?
The enforcement from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, they could revoke the permit altogether, and we would have to start over.
So if they revoke the permit and we would have to start all over, what would that mean for?
For the public, that would mean that they would have to continue to do the go for inspections, requiring the 2 site inspections during June through November. It would slow the permitting process down. There wouldn't be a process for those to go through at the county level if they had occupancy on their property, if they had any of the covered species on their property, they would have to go get a U.S. Fish and Wildlife permit, which can take somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 5 years, depending on the complexities of that project.
So instead of the county, they would have to go through the federal government?
Correct.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Not at this time. My concern is that we address all these concerns that the public brought forward at our next meeting.
So with that, we will open to public testimony. We will go with in-person first, and then after that, we will go to Zoom. I will read your name out loud, the sign-up sheet. If you did not sign up, then I will see if anyone else would like to provide testimony. The first person I have signed up is Vivian Easton.
My name is Vivian Easton. I live at 10104 Albany Place Southwest in Rochester, Washington. I started this process with the Pocket Gopher in 2009, 2010, attended many hearings, and I just had a memory pop up on Facebook that from 2010, I was on my way to a hearing. So my question is the only open house we had was virtual, which I think the county commissioners need to make a policy that the open houses cannot be virtual, especially when most of your audience is unincorporated Thurston County. A lot of unincorporated Thurston County does not have high-speed internet. If they're elderly, it would be like asking my parents to go online and try to figure out, because I went online and tried to figure it out. I'm not an online learner. I need stuff in front of me. I need to be able to ask questions as I'm seeing information. So I think it was a way to just not deal with the public. That's my opinion. And the other, is October 13th going to be open to the public? The Thursday.
Yeah, it would be.
Okay.
Depending on the issues, there may be an executive session the board may request.
And so the question that Commissioner Edwards had about trying to figure out the cost, in order to do that, you have to hire a consultant. In order to deal with Thurston County Permit Center right now, you have to hire a consultant because it's so confusing. And I was wondering how much, it's for me, I would eventually like to build a barn. And then I noticed that even to like put power in, you've got to do all this stuff. I mean, it's nickel and diming those of us who are middle class, that we've worked. I didn't come to the last public hearing because I was working for the county at that time. I just retired, so I was able to come to this hearing. Public hearings should be after hours. You have your evening Board of County Commissioners meeting. You could have had the public hearing then, so people don't have to take off work. They can come here. Again, it's 3:30 in the afternoon in Olympia, and most of the people that live in Rochester or Yelm or Rainier, Tenino, they're working folks, and they don't even get off work until 5 or 6 p.m. So those are just ways that, and to find out any information, even on, they'll say, well, it's on Facebook. You have to go look for it on Facebook because it never pops up that there's information for me to look at. Plus, the county's Facebook has like 1 million different subjects on their one Facebook. There's not a separate Facebook for CPED. I went on there trying to figure out, there was like a meeting the other night that wasn't posted anywhere. I'm running out of time. So the impact is mostly going to be to unincorporated Thurston County, and I believe that they have not been served through this process. So that would be, I think that you need to think about having a different process. Thanks.
Next, I have John Pettit.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is John Pettit. I live on Rich Road, and yes, I'm probably one of the most active people in oversight of what the Thurston County Board of Commissioners are doing. The HCP, as written, noted by Commissioner Edwards of a letter that I sent in, clearly violates state law. It also clearly would violate case law as presented through the Attorney General's opinion. And yet here we are, we have a hearing and not legal counsel. We don't need legal counsel Romero Chavez, it's not a lawyer. And Mr. Menzer's not acting as a lawyer, he's acting as a commissioner. Where's legal counsel? Now, let's talk about a couple things. Covered activities. Covered activities is so much as grading the ground right there because you want to put a garden in. Go get a permit. Pay $2-3 a square foot for that space you want for your garden. I want to grade my field so I can raise cattle. Get a permit. Every square foot that property owners want to use, they own, they paid for this property. You want them to more than double the amount that they paid for it just to use it. And mind you, here's the big flaw in your thinking. I don't even know where this came from. Well, we don't even have to have a gopher review. Well, this is where we start getting into the questions about with the state law. The state law clearly requires something that's referred to as a direct impact. Are we direct impacting a gopher that doesn't live there? Just pay us the $50,000 an acre. So you can end up, oh, correction, $50,000 a credit, 1.6 credits per acre. 8 credits for a 5-acre piece. If you have the dream of a 5-acre piece, you have $400,000 worth of permit fees, payable in advance. This is the most ridiculous thing. And you know what? I would have thought the county learned long ago that you don't need to step into violating people's rights, taking their property, and this is a taking. Anything that you're going to be taking away from people, whether it's their money in order that they use their property or their property itself. You need some legal counsel. I'm sorry you got a shitty attorney, prosecuting attorney. But the bottom line is you are lining yourself up for hundreds of millions of dollars in legal fees, legal costs, because you want to violate all these people's rights out there without even knowing whether a gopher exists. You got to start over, people. This is way out of bounds.
Next I have Terry Ballard.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name's Terry Ballard. I'm a 35-year veteran, and I live in Tanglewild. I have 2 residences in Tanglewild and 1 in Olympia. As far as a caveat your meeting, why do we just have a meeting at 5? Because nobody can make it. Why do we have a meeting at 6? Because nobody can make it. We don't need the public to voice their opinion. Okay? Why do we need a meeting at 7 o'clock like all the other incorporated cities? I don't know. Never happened. As far as the migration of species, how can we have a migration of species with subspecies? I'm just from the from Aberdeen Proving Grounds. They have a deer, different types of deer. Okay, are we that inept on species into subspecies? And I thought the pocket gopher was about prairies. I just heard they're not about prairies, they're about cost and movement of the pocket gophers. Okay, why does Olympia not have a pocket gopher ordinance to build? I would think that since this big thing's a pocket gopher, why does everybody want this pocket gopher in for Thurston County unincorporated, but not all the cities want to participate? I have property in Olympia. I have a 5-acre property in Olympia. I can build. without a permit from a pocket gopher. And those Olympia areas and those incorporated areas, they belong in urban growth areas of Thurston County, owned by Thurston County, okay? Why aren't they the same in the cities and in the incorporated cities as they are in the county, okay? Grays Harbor, Pierce County, Lewis County, Mason County, okay? These are all surrounding counties. They don't seem to have a problem with the pocket gopher, okay? It might be, it's not endangered, it's one to be endangered. So we need to watch out. That's what they say, but we can move out of county and build anything we want. We can move in Olympia and build anything we want, just not here in Thurston County for unincorporated, okay? And the last of all, Fish and Wildlife, okay? Why doesn't Fish and Wildlife buy the property for what it's worth, okay? Spending billions of dollars of taxpayer money, okay, to spend on this land that they want. And this land, it's ridiculous. What, did you guys give them like a notice, an eviction notice, and they just moved to different parts? Did Olympia give them eviction notice and they just moved to the urban growth areas of the county? This is totally discriminatory against Thurston County unincorporated. And you continue to charge Thurston County unincorporated with general funds. You do it all the time, and we can't do anything about it. Thank you.
Next, Sandra McLeish.
My name is Sandra McLeish, and I live at 14618 130th Lane Southeast Yelm. We are the prime example of the small family. Sorry. We started, me and my husband and my in-laws went in, bought 5 acres out in Yelm, started, was able to put water power on it, went to do the septic, and then we were notified we had pocket gophers. We were given 2 options at that time, and this is now going on 6 years. We were given the option to wait for Thurston County to get their HCP plan through, or we could work directly with Fish and Wildlife. During that time, we have worked with 12 different departments, countless numbers of personnel, staff changing, tons of money spent on permits, inspections, site surveys, only to expire after 3 years because nothing has happened. Nothing. My in-laws are 80 years old. Sorry. They live in the motorhome on the property because they love it. We just want to build a small manufactured home. We have 5 acres, a little tiny manufactured home that they can live the rest of their lives out. A retired sergeant major served his country is forced to live in a motorhome on property that we cannot build on. If this HCP, it breaks my heart to know that there's some legal stuff happening because we know that we won't be able to build. We're going to lose more money. It's breaking my heart because that's all we want to do. And to hear, you know, what we're hearing, I don't know a way forward because I know what's going to happen. It's going to get bogged down again. We just want to build a small home. We are that small family. We have had no support, no resources when we started this 6 years ago. No support. It's been convoluted and people going, you need to do this, you need to do this. It comes around again, it starts all again. So I'm at a loss. We don't know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and we're just losing money, time, and our rights are being violated because we can't build. Thank you.
Next, I have Leo Friedrich. Frederick.
That was my daughter-in-law.
I'm Leo Frederick. I'm at 14618 130th Lane Southeast in Yelm. And our story starts May 2016. We purchased a 5-acre lot, basically a hayfield, and came down to the county here, paid our money for the permit, and then at that time, they told us that, well, you got one of two options. You can withdraw your application, or you can work directly with the Federal Fish and Wildlife. And when I asked them if I worked with the county, how long is it going to take? Well, nobody could give me an answer. Said, we don't know. So we said, okay, we can work with the Federal Fish and Wildlife. That was a mistake number one. They set us up a appointment with Susan Nilsson, who was the representative from Federal Fish and Wildlife. And went down, had a meeting with her, and she explained to me that we would have to create our own habitat using our own property. And I said, okay, we can do that. Well, I asked for the guidelines. What needs to be in this habitat plan, and how do we create it? Well, she looked at me and she said, we don't have nothing like that. She says, there is a family by the name of McLean. She says, go online, find their habitat plan, copy that, and use that as a guide. Well, we did. 120 some odd pages. And we went through the thing, a lot of questions back to them. Most of the time, we didn't get no answers back. They told us we had to do a critical area study. Actually, we had to do 2 of them because the first one they didn't like. Then we had to do a wetland study. Then they sent an individual up here from Portland to do an archaeology study because we was in the proximity of an Indian reservation. And the guy come up here and looked at it and said, yep, you got a hayfield. Got in his car and left. Then they told us that we had to set up an assurance policy and asked them, okay, what's the assurance policy? And they wasn't sure. He said, that's something that our superiors said you had to have. Well, come to find out, it was a $3,500 line of credit through the bank. So, okay, we set up a line of credit, asked them what for, and they said, well, they think it's for us to maintain the habitat. It's just ridiculous, and it's one loop after the other we've been jumping through. And I just want to let you know that I'm just one of many families out in Thurston County that's putting up the same crap. But I thank the commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you. Mary, I know you marked no, but I want to, no? Okay. John?
I think you heard enough. Maybe I'll just take the same stuff over and over.
Okay. Mr. Tivetan?
Let me bring the microphone to you. Hold on.
My name is Jan Tvetten.
Okay, give me just a second.
1 sec. We'll bring the microphone to you.
Thank you. My name is Jan Tvetten. I lived in Rochester for 57 years. And a couple of years, well, in 2013 was when I went to the first meeting when this item was discussed at all. I had bought 50 acres, my wife and I, and we decided that in 2 years ago or 4 years ago that there was time for us to do something and get some places for our children that they could build and grow up and have an inheritance from us. We did all of that, and the permit process, I'm no stranger to you, I believe. I've been here. They considered me at one time as a county employee because I was coming here so often. But nevertheless, I was told by U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and here's the starting of the problem. I said, who is it that is requiring these things of us? Is it is it the Secretary of Interior that adopts the priority list? Does he designate the project, and does he adopt the priority list? Never could get the question answered. But I decided I was gonna doggone it, I'm gonna blow my way through this bureaucratic process. I've been a bureaucrat for 33 years, and you're not gonna get the best of me. So I now have 2 permits, one for my daughter and one for my son, and we are in the process of finishing those 2 projects. And by Christmas, they'll both be in their new houses. Now, there got to be some determination of who is it that's in charge? Who has the ability to put this list together of projects subject to the permit? And then what does it take to get it? I got the permit, and yeah, we're moving forward. But, you know, I think of all the nights in 4 years that I spent on this stupid project, and not knowing exactly what I can do, can't do, what the problem is, and so on. Yeah, it's been difficulty, but I worked with county staff and with Fish and Wildlife, and I don't mean this derogatory. I played the game as it was laid out. I worked and worked and worked, and I finally got the thing, and we are moving forward. And the only thing I'm hoping for now is, frankly, that someone can designate who has the authority to do what, and then let's go to court.
Thank you, sir.
Next, I have John Henke.
Hinkle.
Hinkle. Could not tell the L.
This, by the way, is the book of pictures.
3 minutes isn't very much time. I'm John Hinkle. I'm a builder in South County. I've been intimately involved in the credit and the gopher process since 2014. I was involved in a lawsuit against the county with Olympia Master Builders. I may be again, depending on the outcome of this hearing. I guess not hearing, statement. But that's me. Originally, I had meetings with Thurston County and the Fish and Wildlife back in 2014. They recommended HCPs for areas where the gophers occupied the property, not gopher soils, not critical area soils. It was only where there was an occupation of any critical species. What the county is proposing is any place that they could possibly live, you're going to take 51,000 or equivalent thereof. It's criminal. Your current rules, you have us hire a qualified biologist. Our qualified biologist turns in the report to the county staff. The undereducated or non-educated county staff then tells the biologist how they have to correct their own thing. This whole process is just bullshit. It's just wrong. What is the experience and education of the county staff that has been involved in the Habitat Conservation Plan? I asked that question earlier and I was told that I couldn't ask the question. The question needs to be asked and answered to the public. The proposed HCB to be written seems to be based on agenda, not science. We're told that you're going to pay this, you need HCP. Yes, we do. We do need HCP for clients like the ones that have been up here and have gophers on their property. But the intent of the HCP was to be paid by the people who have occupied property, and the county's already acquired property for the HCP. It's not meant as a land grab what you're using it for. You're publicly announcing that you're buying our property. Then you're going to devalue it by putting a $51,000 impact fee, not per acre, but per credit. So it's going to cost us $70,000 to build a house and build a yard on a 1 acre piece. If we want to build a house and build a yard on a 5 acre piece or run a cow, now it's going to cost us $400,000 in addition to the cost of the land. You're going to get our land for free. The 3,500 acres that you guys want, you're going to get it for free. because we could no longer afford to develop it. The value of that land's going down. Your proposal is to pay for the value of the land. Now the value of the land might be $20,000, and this gentleman might choose to take $20,000, but he can't do a damn thing with it, and he doesn't want to pay taxes anymore. You will end up in court, and you may end up being in contempt yourself. You may find a target upon yourself. And that's not coming from me, that's coming from the public.
Thank you. I see Mr. Jeff Merriman signed up, but he's via Zoom, so we'll go ahead and we'll get him once we go to the Zoom screen. Key McMurray, next.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. My name is Key McMurray. My address is 1047 Summit Avenue in Raymond, Washington. I am the owner of Key Environmental Solutions, where I'm a professional stream and wildlife biologist and a professional wetland scientist. I've been involved and working with the gopher issue since 2006, when I was currently working at WDFW, State Fish and Wildlife. I have more experience than any other consultant out there, and I was never asked for my input into the HCP. There has never been any science behind the gophers. We have been asking for science for State Fish and Wildlife through U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We've been asking for science since 2007. Can you provide me the science and provide the public the science used towards the HCP? What experience does the county staff and planning commission have that have been working on the HCP? I think that's important for the public to know. Under the current proposal, if you have an acre to develop that is loaded with gophers, you can pay the county $51,000 to develop your property, hence killing all of the gophers, killing or taking, in the federal term it's a take, hence killing all the gophers on your property. These are endangered animals. There aren't supposed to be any killing or take of any listed species. Why are we allowing any listed species to be killed or be taken? Again, where is the science behind this? If it is truly about the protection of the gophers, how is this protecting them by letting people kill them? Instead of protecting, you're allowing them to be killed. In regards to the potential protected habitat or potential dispersal area, again, where is the science behind this? The county can't pick and choose what listed species for potential dispersal area to protect. All of Thurston County could be considered potential habitat. If a bird poops out a seed of an endangered plant somewhere in the county, that becomes potential dispersal area. If you are within 50 miles of a saltwater and have habitat, this is potential dispersal area for the marbled murrelets. The whole listing is only based on the core airport area. It did not include the whole habitat range. The whole habitat range for the Mazama pocket gophers is ranging from California all the way up to Joint Base Lewis McChord, Pierce County, Thurston County line. U.S. Fish and Wildlife is setting the county up to be sued, so they don't get sued themselves. The best available science that was used by U.S. Fish and Wildlife was the listing for the listing was based on a 1965 report. How is this best available science? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Jim Henry.
Jim Henry, live at 6521 Highland Drive, Tumwater, Washington. I've been a septic system designer for 30 years in Thurston County and the surrounding counties. I've helped the Tibetans with their septic designs on their properties. I applaud you for going through and getting your gopher plans for your properties. He's right. There is no clear delineated path for an HCP. And the proposal, as I have read it, or the drafts of it, are uncertain at best. We have different fee schedule for a different gopher. We have a different fee schedule for the plants and for the frogs and for the sparrow. So if your property happens to have a Yelm pocket gopher, not an Olympia pocket gopher, your impact fees are different. But it happens to be just on the area that the gopher's located. There's no science to tell the difference between a Yelm pocket gopher and an Olympic pocket gopher, other than where he's found. So the impact fees, if they're adopted, will most likely devalue the properties in the county, cutting down on the tax dollars that could be paid into the county. And frankly, I've found these gophers living in people's yards. I do septic designs throughout the county, and they're not limited to rural spots that have not been developed. Personal testimony of the people here say, yeah, you have a hayfield. That property had been tilled, mowed, hay. Gophers are still there. Didn't seem to kill them. So I really wonder about this take. You may kill a few mice if you build a home. You might lose a gopher or two. But to say that if I build a house, that gopher's not going to live there in that area, I doubt that. Because we do find them, as I stated earlier, in people's yards. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Stuart Kubrick. Okay. Is there anyone else? I have two. I'll have the gentleman with the color shirt. You raise your hand first, and then I'll get you, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to come and speak. My name is Calvin Dahl, and I'm at 10824 Lundeen Road in Rochester. And I also have Northwest Green Homes, which is a manufactured home dealership providing affordable housing out of Chehalis. So Gary, you know, you brought up a good point, the example, and I've studied this. And what it says on the site is acres times habitat quality. And then it equals the functional acreage, right? Well, here's where the problem lies. So the way I see it, we're going to do an HCP. Now it's just negotiations, right? So let's just cut the 51,000 because that's not going to work for anybody. So let's, as a commissioners, negotiate that thing down to $500. I mean, $500 per acre, that's reasonable. So, I mean, I know we need a path, but that's a ridiculous price on the path. The other thing is habitat quality. Well, I've turned in wetland reports. I've turned in more reports than there's chins in a Chinese phone book right over there. And let me tell you what, they take my professionals that are on your list and then they scrutinize them. And I've even had them tell me, well, we don't like that report. Go get another one. $1,500 later, I go get another one. Well, you know, we don't agree with this. Why don't you just have the county go out and do it then? I mean, why put the burden on them, on me, and on my clients? If you're not going to accept the professional reports that we turn in, I'll tell you what, you're going to eventually be in legal trouble because somebody's eventually going to say, man, I've hired the people that was on your list. That'd be like Jim Hunter over here turning in a septic design. And what's that? Henry, I'm sorry. The other Jim. Yeah. And you don't accept his design, right? Well, he's a professional engineer who stamps it. So here's in a nutshell what I mean. I don't mind the acres project it impacts, right? I don't like this habitat quality. That is open to negotiation. That is open to interpretation. Now we're looking at soil types and they will not, I guarantee you, they will not accept the professional reports that are turned in on wetlands. They don't accept it on prairie habitat. And, you know, the other thing is we've got all of these animals, and then we've got plants. And right now we've got oak trees that aren't even, by the way, that aren't even in prairie habitat areas. They're in a Christmas tree farm or something, and say, well, it's protected for the whole county. An oak tree that's not even anywhere near prairie habitat. So this formula, Gary, you're onto something, stinks. Thank you.
Julie.
Brandon Rowe, 16523 Tilly Road South. So the first question I would have to ask is what provisions were written in this HCP for the physically disabled, the elderly, the people that are already struggling? And then you have a much younger crowd. You guys are throwing us in the same boat. I mean, I've emailed Mr. Mensner up there several times. Not one time has he got back to me to tell me what he's going to do for me. I've emailed Brett Burrs, Chris Edmarks, Vince McDowell, all of them. Now, but what I found, and this is really important, and I brought this to all their attention, is this report from the Department of Justice. DOJ, that's the highest investigative authority of the land. And DOJ and HUD wrote a report on how the counties, any jurisdiction, they cannot come in and change land use and zoning policies because it discriminates against the handicapped people. Okay, but you did it. And it's illegal. And I'm going to take you to court and I'm going to win. Now, Mr. Henry over here, he designed my septic, what, a year and a half, 2 years ago now, Jim? Yeah, you guys are holding it hostage. I paid you the money. You guys won't get off your ass and do the job. Now, the site surveys are not required, everybody. I got an email right here from Kevin Connolly. You know who he is, right? USFWS? Yeah, he says that site surveys are not a requirement of the ESA. This is something that Thurston County came up with. They pulled this out of their ass. Now, this is a money grab for Thurston County. I mean, God, I don't know how people don't see that, how a lot of people are ignoring that, is the amount of money that Thurston County is going to grab on this. That's why guys like this want to answer guys like me. Why haven't you? Why didn't you take 2 minutes and respond to one of my emails? I've worked my ass off for Washington State. I've destroyed my body working for people like you. And you can't give me 2 minutes? Ridiculous. You're not for the people, you're for the gophers. For the gopher money. It is. That's exactly what it is. So once you guys cut loose with a little bit of that change in the pocket, remember the guys down here who got you where you're at. Yeah, that's ridiculous. It is. Yeah, you're looking at my clock, aren't you? Making you feel a little bit uncomfortable up there? You should be. You should be ashamed because there's people out there, your parents, your grandparents.
Thank you.
That are in a position like me. Ridiculous. So like I said, I'll see you guys in court.
Anyone else in the boardroom? Okay, we'll move on to Zoom.
Thank you. We'll call your. Is there anybody else in the boardroom?
Anybody else want to, Jim, you want to testify?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Come on.
My name is Jim Bennett. I live at 5215 Henderson Boulevard in Tumwater. I've been in real estate for 42 years, born and raised here in Olympia, been around for 70 years. It just turns my stomach to come to a meeting like this. And if you follow the money, that's where what this is all about. I'm not sure how we even got to this point other than going back to two previous county commissioners that I think wanted to stop the growth in Thurston County. So somehow we're here today with pocket gophers and everything else. Dealing with people in real estate, buying property, people want a short plat, have a place for their mother-in-law or their parents or their kids. It's really all about a taking. And if you're going to take people's property rights, you need to pay for them. And for what's going on in Thurston County, there's so many people that have moved out of the county. They're just tired of Thurston County. I deal with it every day. They're just sick of Thurston County. I don't blame them. It's a mess. You could read through all the literature that's available, but who's to know what it really says? And it's just really, it's really disappointing. It's disappointing to live in Thurston County and have you take our property rights and not compensate us for it if that's what you're going to do. So, good luck.
Move on to Zoom now. County Manager, can you please call the people on Zoom?
Yeah, Mr. Derek Vetter. You have 4 minutes. Go ahead, sir. 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you. My name's Derek Vetter. I live at 3231 Wilderness Drive Southeast in Olympia, but I've also got 5 acres of land that I purchased in 2017 at 17141 Little Rock Road Southwest in Rochester. Back when I bought that property in 2017, the ground had been eaten down by horses and it was completely decimated. When I looked at the property, there were no gophers anywhere. You could easily see it because there was almost no vegetation on it. After we purchased it, the person that had previously owned the property took her horses off. The land sat fallow for a year, and I thought I was in good shape. Well, the next year when I went to go file for my septic permit to build our home, I went out, mowed the property, and as I mowed it, I saw pocket gopher holes everywhere. Came to realize that if the gophers live off the roots of the plants, and if you decimate it, you can chase them off, well, which is what horses can do. However, the thing that really got me was that I thought, okay, well, let me go through the process. I know there's a process to do this. So I started contacting biologists, and I started getting turned down by every single biologist because there was so much uncertainty in the process. There was no way forward. And that's when I started talking with Mr. DeVeton in here. He's been a really good resource to learn this whole process. The thing that I think most people are fundamentally missing here is that these gophers are being listed not based on remaining available population, but based on remaining available habitat. And so that's what this process is trying to fix, is it's trying to slow down the amount of habitat that's being taken, not necessarily correcting the population. If anybody should really be sued on this, it should probably be U.S. Fish and Wildlife, because there is no actual evidence to show that these gophers are that they're actually endangered or threatened. It's based on remaining available habitat, and that's really frustrating because the way that the process has been up to now has been based on only if there's a current population, but they do move around, and it's been just frustrating. So I've been paying on this property for the last 5 years with property I cannot use. And, I'd love to build a house down there, but if we can't get an HCP or some other method to go forward, I just don't know what to do with it.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have last name Sprague. Would you like to provide testimony? Last name Sprague. That's the name that I have in the Zoom screen. Nope, okay. Next, I have Mr. Wade Stein. Mr. Wade Stein. Next, I have Mr. Brian Moorhead. Next, I have Mr. Ryan Clark.
I'm sorry, this is Brian Muirhead. I couldn't get my question on.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Brian Muirhead, live at 6527 Alternate Lane in Olympia. I hadn't planned on speaking, but I thought I should. I'm not familiar with all the intricacies of the HCP process that a number of people have addressed or talked about. But we're relatively new homeowners here. We had a plan for we have a plan for a remodel. There's a relatively small amount of land that would be disturbed on our three acre property, only about 1,200 square feet. We became familiar with the pocket gopher issue when we had a biologist come out. She did a survey. She was very, very helpful. We filed the forms with the county, and then we started to understand the complexity of the problem that people face if they find pocket gophers on their property. Even though the place where we were going to build is already covered with concrete, that doesn't matter. The pocket gopher problem still exists for us. So what we understand is that there's a process that you're working to implement that would allow people like us and people like others who maybe want to build on a property to implement that. So we strongly support some process, a process that you're working on. We actually went through the paperwork. We've actually done the calculation. I know one of the commissioners wanted to know what things cost. Well, for 1,200 square feet of disturbed property, the fee for us would be about $900. That's quite a reasonable fee, I think, for something like this, given all the other fees we end up having to pay. But I wanted to let you know that we want you to implement something that will allow property owners to build, even do minor remodels on property where there has been a sighting of pocket gophers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next, I have Mr. Stacy Klein. Next, I have Ms. Kyler Danielson. Next, I have Mr. Jeff Merriman.
Yeah, where did you say you have
Sorry, your connection didn't go through, Mr. Jeff Merriman.
Yes, I'm here.
Go ahead, you have 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, I really don't have too much input on this because I come from the cannabis world. I was one of the last farms there back in the day with Fish and Wildlife that came and did their pilot program. But I really want to share a story. Back in my early days in the 2000s, I was lucky enough to be sitting at a dinner table with Chuck Bundrent, owner of Trident Seafoods. And the topic came up of fishing there in the Bering and along the coast. And during the conversation, there was talk that, oh no, there's not enough fish out there for the commercial fishermen and stuff. And then it came down to, well, you know, you could buy blocks of fish and stuff like that, so that way you can continue to fish. And the moral of the story is, when you have to start paying money to protect something or whatever, is it truly an emergency, or is it truly something of concern? And I see that here with this pocket gopher problem that we are experiencing. When you have to start paying money for protection, does it truly need protected? I see my fellow community members being shook down, and I hate to put it in terms like that, but that's what this is. It's a shakedown, because here we have all this tribal land out here in Grand Mound that Great Wolf Lodge, they don't pay any property taxes, and I doubt they ever did a prairie gopher inspection. There's plans, they're gonna put 1 million square foot grow facility out here in Thurston County. I mean, what kind of impact is that going to do? Are these gophers really getting protected by these actions? I don't think they are. I think it's just, if you pay us some money, grease our palm, we'll let you slide. And to me, that's mob mentality, and it needs to stop in government. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. I believe that will conclude public testimony, unless somebody via Zoom would like to raise your hand if I miss you. That's it, ma'am.
Okay, with that, that will conclude public testimony. Are there any discussion items that you would like to discuss at this time?
Well, I would make a couple of comments for the folks in the audience so they can maybe review this. I would encourage you to take a look at the Washington State Constitution, Article 1, Section 16. I'm not going to preach to you or anything. You guys just take a look at it. See what you think about that. And I really do think something's been brought forward, and that is RCW 8202020. And that'll be on the tape. If you didn't get a chance to write it down, we'll play this tape another day. RCW 82-02-020. And take a look at the Attorney General's ruling of 2003. It's number 10 from 2003. And you'll see the justification for the decision if you review the whole thing. And then see what you might want to do. That's all I can say. Mr. Merriman was about right on point. And I try to be as much as polite as I can be in dealing with this, but I've studied the pocket gopher. I think I've studied it more than most anybody else. I think I could go up against anybody on the pocket gopher. There's more extortion going on by government. I'm just going to let it go at that. I'm not here to point fingers at anybody, but the government does have our back up against the wall. The county per se, the county commission. We cannot afford to be in litigation. But some of you out there maybe could afford to challenge this. Anyway, that's all I'll say for tonight. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Commissioner Menzer? Okay, with that, that will conclude discussion. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. I'll second it. Oh, wait just a second. I thought I heard the county manager. No.
It's moved and seconded. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Call for the vote.
Commissioner Edwards?
Aye.
Commissioner Menzer?
Aye.
Commissioner Mejia?
Aye. Now, a follow-up briefing on this item is scheduled for October 13th, 2022 at 1 p.m. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.